Good evening, Dr. Balanji. My name is Letitia, and today I'm going to be talking about my personal code of ethics. I would like to start by defining what ethics means and what it means to me. Based on Corey and Corey 2013, our textbook, ethics is defined as the aspirational goals or the maximum or ideal standards set by the profession, and they are enforced by professional standards, national certification boards, and government boards that regulate the profession. Now, before talking about what that actually means to me, I would like to shed some light on an article that I came across. A sociologist named Raymond Baumhart asked several people, "What does ethics mean to you?" Among those answers, many people said that ethics has to do with what their feelings tells them is right or wrong. Ethics has to do with their religious beliefs. Ethics, being ethical, is doing what the law requires them to do. Ethics consists of the standards of behavior our society accepts. Some people went as far as saying that they do not know what the word ethics means. Raymond disagreed with those answers and said that being ethical is not a matter of following one's feelings, nor is it a matter of being religious. He said that following the law or even following societal standards doesn't necessarily mean you are being ethical. In fact, he said any of those answers can deviate from what is ethical. He went ahead and defined what ethics means, and he said that ethics is a well-funded standards of right and wrong that prescribe what human beings ought to do, usually in the terms of rights, obligations, benefits to society, fairness, or specific virtues. In a way, I agree with Mr. Baumhart because I do agree that ethics doesn't necessarily have to do with your religious beliefs or following societal norms. However, I think ethics sometimes may have to do with doing what is right and following the law. For example, if a practitioner charges a client for a service that he or she did not provide, that is illegal. So not only is it unethical, it's also illegal because that would be fraudulent charges. So in a way, following the law by not doing any fraudulent charges is also being ethical. So I agree with him, but in somewhat I do feel as though that sometimes ethics has to do with you following the laws and also doing what's right. For me, ethics is my moral principles, which is basically doing what's right even when no one is watching. I think that's, for me, that's the key, because many people do what's right in front of people, or if they feel as though other people are going to see it or hear about it and things like that. But for me, being ethical is doing what's right even when no one is watching, while following rules and regulation, basically while following the law as well. So now that we have talked about what ethics is, I would like to talk about go over ethics in various aspects of counseling profession. Many of the clients who come to seek help are at a vulnerable state. In fact, many people and organizations such as various governing boards and even the state recognize this fact. That is why there are laws, rules, and regulations and other sources of accountability in place to protect our clients in all aspects of counseling process. I'm going to talk about several aspects of counseling process, and one of them is welfare of clients. For me, welfare of clients means making every reasonable effort to protect the well-being of those who seek my services, as well as those people that may be the object of study that I wish to conduct. New Jersey state law requires counselors to respect the dignity and integrity of their clients. In fact, they went further to state that the welfare of the client should be the primary responsibility. I agree with New Jersey state law. In fact, that is in alignment with my own personal code of ethics, because I believe the well-being of the client should be considered in every single aspect of the counseling process. For example, during the process of informed consent, using the language that the client can fully understand, making time available to answer any questions should the client have any, and also fully explaining the consent before asking the client to sign are all part of ensuring the well-being of the client. And should this issue arise in the future, issue of well-being of the client arise in my work in the future, I plan to fully look into what happened with that. I plan to seek further trainings if need be. I plan to talk to my supervisor and also consult with my lead to make sure that I address and rectify that issue. If, for example, with the consent example that I gave, if in the process of consent and a client felt like I did not fully maybe explain the consent fully, I would, if I have to maybe disregard the consent that they already signed and bring up another one and go or explain it step by step with the client before they sign that second one, I would do so just to make sure that the client is comfortable with what they are signing and the client fully understand and before they agree. Another issue in counseling process is responsibility. For me, responsibility in counseling means maintaining the highest standards while providing services. It means accepting responsibility for the consequences of my work and making every effort to ensure that services are used appropriately. It means taking credit for only the work that I have done, and credit and referencing works that were performed by others. It means accepting social responsibility and being cognizant of the fact that my recommendations and professional actions may alter the lives of others. I plan to integrate this code of ethics in my future work by being objective and also having an integrity. I plan to be informative and take time to update myself with rules and regulations as it applies to my work. And I plan to take responsibility and possibly retrain myself if an issue of responsibility or accountability was to ever arise in my future work. Another aspect of counseling process is self-awareness. Self-awareness is about opportunities for professional development and personal growth. It helps in strengthening the counselor's or highlighting the counselor's strength and help finding ways to manage any areas of improvement. I will apply this code of ethics by continuing to read and keep myself up to date. I plan to attend trainings, especially in the areas where I feel I need improvement. I plan to refer clients when necessary and consult on issues that I am not familiar with. I plan to acknowledge when I am overwhelmed and also practice self-care as needed. I think when it comes to self-awareness, not only do you take necessary steps to know where your strengths are and maybe where your weaknesses are, also taking necessary steps to practice self-care, I think is very important, because at times practitioners may feel burnt out. So self-care is also a part of self-awareness, knowing when you have gotten to a point where you can't possibly do anymore, or else you'll be burnt out, knowing your limits, knowing where your skills are. Excuse me. Also knowing the topics that you specialize in and the ones that you can possibly refer to other clients. Those are all aspects of self awareness. And the next topic is the next aspect of counseling process is dual relationships or multiple relationships. I stated before, many of the clients that come to seek our help might be at a vulnerable state. Therefore, entering into a multiple or dual relationships with clients could lead to taking advantage of the client or exploiting the client, and it can also lead to impairing your professional judgment, and which can increase risk of harm to the client. I think the best option for me is to avoid entering into a dual relationship. I plan to in the future, if this was to arise as an issue, I plan to take appropriate professional precautions, such as consultation, supervision, documentations, to ensure that my judgment is not impaired, and to also make sure that the client is safe and does not feel or do not feel exploited. The last issue that I would like to touch on is the issue of boundaries. Boundary is a structured or a structural characteristics of a relationship that allow the therapist to interact with warmth, empathy, within certain conditions that create a climate of safety. So in essence, boundaries allows for me. Boundaries allows for for therapists to have and maintain a professional relationship with clients without having to exploit the client or take advantage of the client, or even the client taking advantage of the therapist. Boundary issues may or can manifest in the process of therapy in different ways. A perfect example is dual relationship, as we talked about before. Boundary issues may arise as a result of the counselor deviating from the scope of their practice. An example of that, like I said, is if a therapist decides to enter into a dual relationship with a client, that can put the therapist in a position to cross boundaries with the client. Having boundaries does not, for me, I don't think having boundaries mean that as a therapist you have to be cold and aloof. I think that it means that you can still have a warm professional relationship with your client, but making sure that those fine lines does not get crossed. I plan to address this issue in my future work by adjusting my interaction with each client. I feel like boundary is can be very tricky too. Sometimes it's not always black and white. In many cases, it is black and white. For example, entering into a sexual relationship with your client is crossing boundaries, so that's black and white. But sometimes it's not. For example, when working with a client, I might decide to use humor to help foster the therapeutic alliance or therapeutic healing. But working with another client that might not necessarily have a sense of humor, or might feel as though that the humor is at their expense, I will refrain from using humorous comments. So that's where boundary may also be kind of tricky, because even though humor, plain and appropriate humor, might not necessarily be seen as crossing the boundary, but depending on client that you work with, it just might be. So I feel like one of it is a matter of adjusting yourself, especially within those ones that are kind of tricky, to make sure that each client, because each client is different. What might work with one client might not work with another client. So basically with those boundary issues that are clear, that are black and white, completely staying away from it. But the ones that are kind of tricky, such as using humor, I plan to adjust myself to cater to individual clients. With other, especially when it comes to with maybe clients that have had issues with people using humor to tease them or bully them or whatever, or something like that, that's where it could kind of cross that boundary a little bit. Another example is, I believe in disclosure. I believe it's helpful in therapy. I plan to do so appropriately, of course, but I plan to exercise caution in what I disclose, why I disclose it, how I disclose it, so that I do not cross boundary. And if a situation should arise where maybe something that I have disclosed, I went too far, or the client didn't really feel as though it was helpful, I plan to completely be honest with it, and honest with and validate that client's feelings, and move forward from there. Okay, so the next thing I'm going to talk about is a case study. This case study is to show how maybe state law, as well as especially my professional, my personal code of ethics will be applied. When I was interning as an undergraduate at Clarence Psychiatric Hospital, the therapist that I was under was there was a lady that he was seeing, and the lady husband passed away. And he has been seeing this lady for about maybe 8 months. And they were getting ready to the end of their professional relationship, but the lady didn't know how to say goodbye. Basically, she wanted to keep seeing this practitioner. In fact, she started to develop feelings for this practitioner. So she asked the practitioner if they can go out. She asked him out. She said that she has been developing over this few months. She had come to know him, and she is starting to develop feelings for him. And now that's in a matter of days, they will no longer. He will no longer be seeing her as his client. Can they go out once their professional relationship is terminated? The practitioner said declined, and said that that would be unethical on his part. He did not dismissed the lady coldly. He explained his where he's coming from. He said that it would be unethical for him to do so. He explained the fact that she is his client, or is about to no longer be his client yet. He cannot enter into an intimate relationship or social relationship with her anytime soon. He said that even though that they will no longer, even a week from that time, that they will no longer be or have a professional relationship, that he still will not enter into a social or intimate relationship with her because it still will be unethical. The lady said, well, how long would I have to wait? Is it a month? Is it 2 months? I will wait. the practitioner said no. The practitioner actually encouraged the lady that, okay, since she's no longer grieving the loss of her husband, that he encouraged her to go out and meet people and things like that. The practitioner said if after 5 years and they still and they end up meeting each other somehow, then they will see what will happen from there. This case in point illustrates my personal code of ethics, and also kind of the regulation, because I believe American Counseling Association urges practitioners to stay away from even clients that are no longer your clients. They encourage practitioners to give at least 2 to 5 years before even entertaining that idea. And I agree with that, because again, it makes sure that the client is not taken advantage of. In my example, in the case example that I gave, the lady, even though she felt like she's getting better from grieving her husband, maybe she is still grieving her husband, and therefore, if the practitioner was to go out with her, she will still maybe still at a vulnerable point. So that's why I agree with what he did is in alignment with my own also personal code of ethics, as well as the regulations. Okay, so right now I'm going to show my my references, and please, if you have any other questions, let me know. I enjoyed the class. It taught me a lot. I'm not sure if you can see it, but I'm actually going to turn it upside down, so see if it will be better. No? Okay. But this will be my references. Let's see, references. This will be my references. And this is the second page. All right. Thank you, Dr. Belangi. Like I said, I really enjoyed the class, and I wish you a very fun spring and summer, and I hope you are staying warm. Goodbye.